Pichon Baron, classified second growth, now making some of the best wines in the world. But it wasn't always that way, because Pichon Baron went through some dark times back in the 60s and 70s. In fact, they didn't have a lot of money. And in fact, I used to talk to like Gilles Alderon, who was the managing director of Pichon Lalande, and he was saying the same thing to me. He says, it wasn't until the 1982 vintage that really no one cared about Bordeaux. And Pichon Baron, which is across the street from Pichon Lalande, kind of the same. Then they brought in this guy named Jean-Michel Caz, and you may know him from Lynch-Bage, to kind of help the estate. But still, there wasn't enough money there to really make this estate great. Again, I mean, most of the production was going into the Grand Vin. There wasn't really a second wine. There wasn't a selection like they're making now. It was tough times for Bordeaux back in that era, but things changed. AXA, which is an insurance company in Europe, bought the property, and they brought in a guy named Jean-René Matillon. I hope I'm pronouncing that right, in 1985. And within 2 years, I don't know if you guys ever had the 89 Pichon Baron, but that wine is bonkers, okay? So this guy is like turning around the property. And it's the money of the insurance company, AXA, that is helping turn around the property. But then, even back then, most of the wine went into the Grand Vin. And it wasn't until 1986, I think it was, maybe the second year or that he was doing it, that he decided to make a second wine called Les Tourelles, okay? The funny thing about Les Tourelles, it doesn't say Pichon Baron on the label. It says Les Tourelles de Longueville. Okay, that was kind of Frenchy in a way, but, and that was a second wine that they didn't want to, I don't think they wanted to kind of associate that with Pichon Baron. So, they have a property, and again, in Pauillac, you don't have to have one contiguous estate. You can have dirt in all areas of the commune. As long as it's in Pauillac, it can be Pichon Baron. So basically, they have this property that is a little bit kind of, how would that be, in the river? It'd be west of the Gironde, and that property has a lot of Merlot, and that's where they would use a little bit of that Merlot to blend into Pichon Baron. But then Jean-René decided that, hey, you know what? I'm going to put this in the second wine, Les Tourelles. So Les Tourelles was born, okay? So Les Tourelles kind of came along, every year. And then all of a sudden, now money's coming in to the estate, right? Now there's money. They got insurance behind them. They're buying properties, but now they have a classified second growth. It's a beautiful property. And they buy more vineyards, okay? But now they buy vineyards in really prime spots. And they did a replanting of vineyards too. And so these young vines, kind of like last week with Le Petit Mouton, needed to get older, And so, but he's like, you know what, we gotta have a true second wine, like a higher end second wine, not called Les Tourelles. That's mainly Merlot anyway. We have all this great Cabernet, some of it old vine Cabernet, and our selection that went from a 20,000 case selection prior is now cut in half. So what do we do? Because now we're trying to make the best wine for Pichon Baron, because they're getting like $200 a bottle. So they're trying to make the best wine. So what do we do with all these great grapes? We create a new label. And the Griffons was born. Griffons is mainly, unlike Tourelles, Tourelles is mainly a Merlot base wine, whereas Griffons is mainly a Cabernet Sauvignon base wine. And Griffons, the grapes that are grown for Griffons are actually more towards the Gironde estuary, and that's where the great grapes are born. Like where Latour is, where Pichon Lalande is, where, basically the the saying is, if you can see the river from the vineyard, it's a great vineyard. And so we're like, okay, the one thing that we really love about Griffons, and actually when we were tasting the wine, Kyle and I were talking about this, is that it actually says Pichon Baron on the label, where Tourelle's does not. So Tourelle's is Le Tourelle's, the Longview, whereas this is Le Griffons, the Pichon Baron. And the reason, I think, is because they're really proud of this wine. When we tasted the 2020, we were just like, holy shenanigans, okay? The wine's great. This is like during the COVID years, so not a lot of reviewers reviewed the wines back then, but for all purposes, James Suckling gave it 95 points. But what we love about this wine is it's really the essence of what Pichon Baron is all about. And it's great Cabernet. And although this has a lot of Merlot in it and Petit Verdot, which by the way, all the Petit Verdot that they grow on the property goes into this wine. They don't put that into Pichon Baron. So they're trying to get this Petit Verdot old enough to where it'll give the more structure to Pichon Baron. But the thing is again, when we tasted this wine, it was just like, oh my gosh, this is like a junior Pichon Baron, and it's like a quarter of the price. So I don't know what you want, but for me, I mean, I don't like paying a lot of money for wine, to be honest with you. I mean, I do because I own a wine shop, but that being said, when I drink something, I like drinking great value, and this is a great value. Again, 95 points, 2020, Pauillac, Pichon Baron. I don't want to say it's leftovers because it's not. I mean, in fact, they're doing, in fact, this is the first vintage that they built a whole new shade. It's absolutely gorgeous. And this is the first vintage that they did age the wine in amphora. And I think this brings out that really Cabernet essence to the wine. You can drink this now. I mean, black currants, cherries, little tobacco, dark chocolate. Yum. You know what to do.